I've wanted to try to tease apart the lines between maturity and Mussar. And just by way of having an example to work with, I chose overcoming anger. I think what caught my attention was the statement in the Igeres Ramban that to control or to reduce anger, a person should speak softly, and speaking softly not only overcomes anger, but it'll help him with humility. And humility is a key tool to Yiras Shamayim. So I was asking myself if the Ramban is talking about maturity or he's talking about Mussar. And what emerged is that maturity is really about discovering that you have a toolbox. And Mussar is really what to do with that toolbox. It's a little bit like the analogy to a GPS. A GPS can tell you how to get to where you want to go, but it can't teach you how to drive. That you need something more basic, something more foundational. To know how to drive, it's something that you need to independently acquire. When you know how to drive, you can talk about improving your technique. You can talk about where to go. So, what the message of maturity relates to, excuse me, relates to the fact that there are many people that don't even realize that they are angry, or don't realize that a person has the ability to modify, to make any changes in that wiring of anger, or they might just be so primitive that they just assume that the world should work in accordance with what they want. And that's just the way it should be. The world is supposed to work according to the way I want it to work, which is what happened when I was born. So there's a certain raw material where a person is not yet thinking, is not yet processing, that they have a tool, that they have a measure of ownership over their feeling, thoughts, and actions, where they are in the driver's seat, or at least they are capable of being in the driver's seat, where they're no longer just running their standard program the way they were wired when they were born. So, does it mean change? Well, it probably means that there's going to be some change. There's the biggest change, though, is going to come from the awareness. They're going to realize, oh, I've got an anger issue, and I have a mission. And the mission is to deal with that. And now I have a tool. The Ramban says that a wonderful tool for dealing with this is speaking softly. So the idea of the relationship between maturity and Mussar can be understood a little bit along these lines. When we think about maturity, we're really talking about getting to know that you can think about yourself. And you don't have to always be running a program that is so predictable. It's the predictability that makes it immune to Mussar. It's the person who's predictable will never read a Sefer Mussar. either because they don't think they can do anything about it or they don't think that they have a problem. This is just who they are. And they haven't stopped to take a take an inventory of who they are. These are my strengths. These are my challenges. I can use these strengths to work with these challenges. And that everything about the world of Mussar, including the complex stories of the Rambam, of how one changes Amida, she calls Deya, they all presume that the person has an inventory. They know how they were born with natural strengths and natural challenges, and they now know that they need to make modifications, and they're seeking, whether it's seeking tools, seeking insight, a little bit more awareness of how much damage anger does, so then I'll be more motivated to use some of those tools, or maybe the awareness itself will help me rein in the anger. Again, a behavioral tool like speaking softly. But the message is that maturity is the kickstart, because without maturity, Mussar will never have anything to say. The kickstart is I am I I have an inventory, and I can think about that inventory. I can think about the impact that I have on people's lives, the impact that I have on my own life. I can think about eternity and the impact that I'm having on eternity and the impact that my actions have on eternity. So it's getting into that mode of activating one's awareness that is really about what maturity is about. And then Mussar steps in from there. So the Ramban, in telling us to speak softly in order to deal with our anger, is speaking to somebody who already knows his nature. He knows perhaps, and the Ramban is trying to fill him in, that there's a wonderful advantage of dealing with your anger, which is that you could strike a deal called anava. You could actually become a more humble person, less promoting of self. And so the message of maturity is that we're living in a time where it's not even considered in vogue. It's not like people are always talking about stopping and thinking. And stopping and thinking can sometimes take a lot of effort. It can take a lot of focus. Stopping and thinking means stopping, first of all. And instead of just swimming along the way I was born in my nature. So I just wanted to dedicate these few minutes to analyzing and saying, what is the message of maturity and how does it relate to the message of Mussar? And what emerged was that maturity is sort of the trigger, the kickstart, the ability to get into the game. It's knowing how to drive, it's knowing your strengths and knowing your challenges, whereas Mussar is assuming that you know those. Here are some tools and here's some insights, here's some awareness. Perhaps you didn't know just how serious this is, and so it didn't occur to you to give it so much attention. Now Mussar will help you by highlighting just how important this is, and that you can take it forward. But if you haven't thought about your inventory, then the message of Mussar has no place to land.